Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we've got ourselves a brand new PNSO release to take a look at. As you can see, we have the Therizinosaurus, and this one is definitely a very welcome addition to my collection and a welcome addition to the PNSO line because we don't have very many dinosaurs like this in the line. Until recently, when we got the Dino-Kyrus, there weren't any dinosaurs at all in the PNSO line that I can recall like this, so it's awesome to have more feathered species, beginning to pick up in the line of PNSO figures. And this one looks to be another excellent addition to the line, and again, another gorgeous sculpt, and definitely a very cool looking paint scheme on it. Nothing overly flashy, but I feel like a Therizinosaurus wouldn't really have that flashy of an appearance. Like the Dino-Kyrus was pretty flashy, but really natural. At the same time, I kind of prefer like darker tones on my Therizinosaurus figures, and I kind of see that here. There's definitely some light tones from what we can see, but also quite a bit of dark tones. And you can see the box art is pretty much what you would expect for a PNSO figure. Again, we've got the logo for PNSO there, and then a nice image of the Therizinosaurus, as well as a shot here of the head sculpt of the dinosaur. And then once you turn it around, it's pretty much the same thing. So let's pop the box open and check it out. First of all, we've got, and there it is, now it was backwards, we've got the booklet here for our Therizinosaurus, and as per usual, as you go through, you'll find all sorts of incredible imagery as well as information on the dinosaur. Really cool, kind of like a hand-drawn image, and we have more of those as we move through here. I really quite like that. Oh, that one's pretty neat too. That's definitely a very cool looking image. And oh, there we go. I was gonna say, often we get kind of like some dino toy photography with our Therizinosaurus, and there we have a little bit of that. If my camera would focus on it, for some reason it's not doing that right now. There we go. Welcome back, camera. Nice to see that you took a nap and you're feeling better. But you can again see that we have some like dino toy photography of it, as well as a really cool image right here of a Therizinosaurus, a little more photography of the actual figure. And again, you have all sorts of information and stuff. Very cool reads these booklets are. I love that these are always included. PNSO making sure you get a lot of bang for your buck. And then we've also got another part that I love, and that's the poster. You usually get a poster with your PNSO release, and I'm very excited to see what this one is. And wow, that is beautiful. So let's bring the camera up here and take a look at it. You can see we've got a super cool image of a Therizinosaurus in a wooded area. And again, that is as beautiful and majestic as it gets when it comes to artwork for a Therizinosaurus. This is definitely, yet again, as per usual, the type of artwork you want to frame and put up on your wall. But at this point, if I did that with every one of these posters that I have received from PNSO over the years, I don't know that I would even have a wall. It would literally just be framed images of incredible PNSO artwork. And yet again, another fantastic image from them. On top of that, we've also got ourselves that plastic PNSO stand that we always get just in case your figure has any balancing issues. And of course, the star of the show is the Therizinosaurus. And look at that. That is awesome. This is actually quite a bit darker in coloration than I thought it was going to be. The tones of color, especially up here, like I don't know if I just didn't realize that they were a black. I thought they were kind of like a dark blue or something in the promo images, or maybe even a darker gray, but that is definitely straight up black. It looks really, really neat here in person, a lot better than I thought it was going to, and I already was pretty hyped for it. But I really like the dark tones. I actually had just got done saying that I like darker tones on my Therizinosaurus figures, and this one here is definitely giving me the dark tones that I requested. So, wow, I'm actually really blown away by how good this looks. I don't know why I'm surprised, because PNSO always delivers when it comes to their figures. But this one, again, just like those darker tones, really caught me off guard. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at this gorgeous Therizinosaurus. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our dinosaur, you can see some really nice texturing up here in the snout of our Therizinosaurus. Leading down the beak, it looks really nice. You've got a beautifully sculpted out nostril right there, as well as some super nice looking paintwork, as we have quite a few different tones of color just in this area. I can pick up on like some browns, even some light hints of pinks. You've got a little gray, and then some brown out here on the tip of the snout. Totally different shade of brown compared to what we have right there. It's actually almost like a hint of green and brown together. That is some very impressive paintwork for such a small area. So really nice paintwork here on the part of PNSO. You can even see almost like some bluish grays up here on the top above the nostrils, which is pretty darn cool. We've got a really nicely painted eye. That's a very small eye, and you can see it's painted with kind of like an orangish tone and a black pupil. Same deal for the opposing side. Both eyes are beautifully painted, very nicely placed. We do have an articulated jaw for the Therizinosaurus, and you can see the inside of the mouth is extremely highly detailed. Really nice paintwork in there as well. Also seems to be a nice gloss coat added to the inside of the mouth. I'm very impressed all the time with the inside of the mouth of a PNSO figure, especially on the upper side, and the sheer amount of detail they include. They're always incredibly lifelike, and definitely no different here with this Therizinosaurus. But as you start to move back here into the head, you can see some variation of color, actually, which I didn't see immediately when we were down there at ground level. And now that I have it here in hand up in the light, I can see kind of like a bluish tone right there in the eye socket area as it transitions, though, to a black. And you can see, again, some really nice feather detail, pretty much exactly the type of feather detail you would expect to see on a Therizinosaurus, as we have kind of like those, they almost look like they're a little scruffy, kind of shaggy feathers, almost emu-like feathers. And as you move down, you get this really nice kind of like a stripe of like a light gray, like a bluish gray moving down, and that meshes really nicely with the black tones. Very cool looking. Yeah, we have that same deal over here, as we have that nice, really subtle stripe of that kind of like a light grayish blue that leads down the course of the neck. That looks really cool, and is just such a small, subtle addition to the paintwork that I didn't pick up on at first. And again, I really love things like that. I love when companies do stuff like that, because it just adds an element of realism that they otherwise wouldn't have achieved. As you move down here closer to the throat, you see a really nice tone of a brown running down the throat, and then we have like a light, almost like a yellowish brown for the underside. The throat is really nicely sculpted out right there. And you can also see, as we move up here in the throat region, we have like a nice pinkish tone. And that area is insanely well done when it comes to the sculpt and detail. Like, I feel like I can see the veins and everything in that area of the throat of the Therizinosaurus. That looks beautiful, and yet again, extremely realistic paintwork. As we continue to move down the course of the dinosaur, you see that the feathers here, although a little shaggy, are kind of like nicely pressed against the neck, but as you lead up toward the spinal column, they kind of become a little bit scruffier, and they increase in size as we move down closer to the body of the dinosaur. Once we're down here, you can kind of make out the shoulder blades slightly there in the feathering, but as you move down, you continue to see that really nice brownish tone following down along the dark kind of grays and blacks that we have in the figure. And you can see again that the feather detail kind of gets a little scruffier. You can see how scruffy it looks right there, and it continues to have that same appearance as you move down the course of the arm of our dinosaur. And you can see the elbow present. Again, it lightens to like a brownish shade along the back of the elbow. As you lead out into the hand, really nicely sculpted out hand, beautifully sculpted nails. I love that they look genuinely sharp, and I also love the paintwork as we start out with a dark tone, lighten very nicely and naturally, and then transition again back to a darker tone at the tips of the nails to highlight the nails. And there's also even like some shades of browns included in there. The paintwork of PNSO just always is continuing to improve, but it's insane when you go back to their older releases, like the old kind of large vinyl models, and look at their paintwork then compared to the paintwork on their models now. Very few companies can touch PNSO when it comes to the realism of their paint jobs or their sculpts. And a perfect example of that is, look at the skin detail here along the underside of the arm. That is insane. So much wrinkling and creasing right there in the elbow and here in the wrist. As you lead out into the hand, you can see the hand itself looks great. Really nice sculpting of the undersides of the fingers, and we have a nice brownish tone in the fingers as well. Same deal here for the chest and stomach region of the Therizinosaurus. As you lead down, you can see the feathers kind of disappear, and then we have nothing on the underside except for the skin texture, and that as well is extremely highly detailed, and that's putting it mildly. But as we move back up here into the side of the dinosaur, you see a little area of the skin texture down here. Again, some of the skin stretching off of the stomach as that leg is kind of trailing right there. You can also see more of that really nice shaggy feathering up here on the back of the dinosaur, and you can see a super smooth transition as we move down from the black down into kind of like a light gray here for the side, but we continue to have variations of browns, even like reddish browns throughout, and all of the transitions back and forth are incredibly smooth. Look at how nice that transitioning is from the darker tones to the lighter tones. Super, super nice. If we come over here to the opposing side, get an idea of what the arm sculpt looks like, you can see it's in a totally different position over here compared to what we saw on the initial side. Same deal with the fingers, the claws, everything. They're all totally in different positions compared to what we saw on the initial side. This arm is held into the body a little bit closer than what we see on the opposing arm, which is kind of reaching out a little bit. Same style of incredible sculpt work with the feather detail, as well as that really nice paintwork, again with the variations of browns running along the back of the arm and then here in the front, and it just looks phenomenal. Same type of paintwork for the nails, yet again, super smooth transitions when it comes to the paintwork of the nails as well, and yet again they look genuinely sharp, which is awesome. You can see some nice bulkiness to the stomach region of the dinosaur as well. As you lead down here, you can kind of make out some muscle definition in the thigh, but the feathers kind of obscured a little bit, yet PNSO has still found a way to kind of elaborate that. And you can see we transition again back to a darker tone, but rather than a black, this time it's a really dark brown. As we move down into the foot sculpt of the Therizinosaurus, you've got some really nicely sculpted out toes, beautifully painted nails, very, very nice paintwork down here yet again for our dinosaur. You can get a good look at what the opposing foot looks like. Very well done. Really nice transition from the feathers down here into the skin texture, and again super smooth as far as the coloration and tones. I like that we go down to this nice lighter brown, then transition to a really dark brown there for the feet. Actually, it's more of like a black for the toes. But as we lead back up, you can again lead out here into the tail of the dinosaur. You continue to see those really scruffy feathers, and then once you reach the tail, they kind of hang off of the tail here really nicely, really realistically. You can see a lot of imperfections to the edges of the feathers, again adding another element of realism to the figure, and you can see more really smooth transitions, more really beautiful shaggy feathering as you move along the course of the dinosaur, and you have a nice light kind of a reddish brown out here on the tail. Gorgeous looking detailing even to the underside as far as that feather detail goes. And you can even see that there's like a wash that they've applied there to highlight the feather detail on the underside. And you can see that we do have a cloaca present, so making sure that this is as anatomically correct as possible. But the skin texture and everything here on the underside is just amazing, just like we saw on the upper side. And then if we take a look over here again at the tail, really nice. I love this kind of light tone of color that they have here leading along the edge of the feathers as we again reach the kind of tip of those shaggy feathers. It looks very, very nice. So this is yet another moment of PNSO knocking it straight out of the park. This Therizinosaurus is gorgeous. As far as a size goes, for a length from the tail to the head, you are looking at a little over 8.5 inches, maybe approaching 8 3/4, or around 22 centimeters. And then for a height, you are looking at about 5 3/4 inches, or right around 15 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our PNSO Therizinosaurus. And you can definitely see that it is not an absolutely huge figure. It's not massive, but it's a very nice, very convenient size, and maybe one of, if not the most realistic depictions of a Therizinosaurus that I have ever seen. And then for a few random PNSO comparisons, we have the PNSO Centrosaurus here next to the Therizinosaurus, showing you that the Therizinosaurus is obviously a bit larger than the Centrosaurus is. We've also got ourselves the Sinraptor here next to the Therizinosaurus, and you can obviously see as well that the Sinraptor is a little bit smaller. It's always so cool when we get to the PNSO comparisons, because then I get to pull a bunch of my PNSO figures out and kind of show them off next to the newer figure, and it always impresses me just how good the PNSO figures are as a whole. But for another comparison, and we have them flipped around here this time, but we've got Wilson, everyone's favorite T-Rex, next to the Therizinosaurus, and that would be quite the interesting fight to see, because it looks like Wilson is kind of leaning down to potentially take a bite of the arm of the Therizinosaurus, and the Therizinosaurus' arm also seems to be coming out to attack Wilson. So that's pretty convenient that they are almost already positioned in a way that they create a diorama. And then when it comes to another herbivore, we've got the Olorotitan here from PNSO next to the Therizinosaurus. Very similar size for these two. But for another comparison, here is an encounter we definitely never would have seen, but we've got the Allosaurus next to the Therizinosaurus, and the Allosaurus clearly is a little hungry as he's taking a bite out of the arm of our Therizinosaurus, but definitely another popular figure from PNSO that I felt like would be a great one to bring in for a comparison. However, the comparison I feel like most people are interested in seeing, we have the Dinosaur here next to the Therizinosaurus, and you can clearly see that the Dinosaur wins this round as far as overall body mass, but honestly, both are gorgeous figures. Like, when it comes to a Therizinosaurus and when it comes to a Dinosaur, I really don't think that there are any better figures out currently than either of these, and that's something that PNSO can claim about many of their models, if not all of their models, when it comes to pretty much having the definitive versions of almost every species they release. So this brand new PNSO Therizinosaurus is another absolutely gorgeous release from them, and that is not a surprise because at this point I really don't think that they'll ever release anything that is going to fall short of amazing, because this Therizinosaurus perfectly captures what I know and love about the dinosaur. And again, I love the fact that the tones of it look a lot darker here in person than they did in the promotional images. I just feel like it looks so good with the tones of color that we have here for it, and I love the kind of black running down from the face and that kind of light grayish stripe leading down. Like, they did a great job of adding in some really slight color differences that you almost wouldn't even notice, and even I didn't notice when I first pulled the figure out until I got it in a really good light and took a look at it, and then you start to pick up on just how much paintwork and just how much coloration is included on the figure, and then you have to stop and think for a minute that this is a factory painted figure. Like, it always blows my mind just how good the paint jobs of their figures are for being factory produced figures. It really is quite amazing that the factory that creates these figures is so good at what they do. But as per usual, the coloration and color scheme looks extremely nice, extremely natural. 100% could be the coloration of a Therizinosaurus. I have no doubt about that. But also, the paintwork looks extremely natural as far as the way it's applied. Super smooth transitions back and forth, and lots of color added to our Therizinosaurus. Even if the majority of the color is darker tones, there's a lot added to it. And again, I would say it's perfection as far as the paintwork of this Therizinosaurus goes. And on top of that, the sculpt is gorgeous. Really highly detailed as always. Extremely vibrant detail. Very nice pose for the dinosaurs. It looks like it could potentially be ready to do battle. It could be just, relaxed, and maybe it's about to kind of like tear some bark off of a tree or something. You really have no idea what the goal is, but you can kind of take that thought process and come up with almost any scenario you could possibly think of for the positioning of the Therizinosaurus and the way that they have sculpted out the pose. So again, as a whole, this is an amazing release and definitely another incredible PNSO figure. So if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description to the PNSO Amazon store as well as the PNSO Aliexpress store. So make sure you check the links in the description. Go grab this figure from one of those two websites and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.